Well, first tonight, a shocking rise in the number of people found sleeping rough in Nottingham throughout last year. We can reveal that well over 1,300 people spent at least one night on the streets of the city. The number identified by outreach workers almost doubled in 2023. Well, they're offering help with everything from accommodation to addiction treatment, as our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports.
Are we all right to just open up the bag a little bit?
Imagine spending a night like this, 5 a.m. in the centre of Nottingham.
We've got concerns about your health.
Jack and Reese are checking this man's still breathing.
Car parks are the bane of our lives, aren't they, really?
Nottingham's street outreach team does these welfare checks every night of the year, but there are still surprises.
Someone's left their belongings, including their dog, on the street. Seeing that massive dog without an owner was quite unusual. They might have just... They've probably gone to score, to be honest.
At the Royal Concert Hall, two men who've moved here from out of town. They're offered what's known as reconnection, back to the local council area where they qualify for housing.
Hello, mate, you okay?
And down the road, this.
It's just coming up to 6 o'clock now here on Clumber Street, and they've just found another man sleeping hidden behind 4 rubbish bins here.
This man's just been released from prison with nowhere to go.
We can definitely try and vouch for you.
Behind the Victoria Centre, this man said he had to leave supported accommodation because he wasn't getting the help he needed.
Why am I not high priority? I've got mental health issues.
He wants rehab for alcohol addiction, and he's turned down the council's offer of a private tenancy.
I don't want private accommodation. I want supported accommodation. I need help. I need support. I need a key worker or somebody.
It's been really cold, hasn't it? What's it been like here on the
It's
streets?
freezing, but obviously I can't even get into an emergency, like these night places, yeah, because they reckon they're full.
Outside this charity shop, a couple who've hit rock bottom. They've been sleeping rough for months.
Most people that we do see, we can get them into accommodation. Problem is there is long waiting lists at the minute. A lot of people suffer from quite complex behaviours. Their behaviours can result in them getting evicted.
But this man said he did have a home to go to.
You miss your bus? Where do you live? Buses will be starting in a minute.
Then Reese takes a call on the street outreach hotline. Someone's been sleeping at a tram stop.
Where were you before?
This man's called the hotline too. He's one of 50 newly recognised refugees they've found in Nottingham recently.
And when did you get asked to leave?
They've had to leave asylum hotels after being granted residence permits. This woman's alone, walking the streets, so they'll try to find her somewhere safe.
Well, it's just gone 8 o'clock now. We've spent the last hour driving around Nottingham, responding to reports of people sleeping rough, and we've just arrived at the cemetery.
They've had a call from a man who's set up camp inside, but with the gates still locked, getting in is going to be a challenge.
If you're an entrenched rough sleeper, paying your bills, dealing with letters can be quite difficult. And it's those difficulties that people face that cause them to go back onto the streets. We can see people anywhere.
At the tram stop, the person reported sleeping rough has gone, and this is about so much more than tackling homelessness. It's about rebuilding shattered lives.
Well, Jeremy's with me in the studio. So, Jeremy, how common is it for people to end up on the streets?
Well, we'll get all the official counts, Anne, at the end of this month, but that's just for a single night. So we get a much more detailed picture from the outreach teams who count every single person they've identified over the course of a whole year. And look at the numbers here for Nottingham. 1,350 individuals identified sleeping rough in 2023. That is up by 85% in a single year. There have been increases in our other cities too, up to 541 identified in Leicester and 290 people identified on the streets of Derby.
Why so high in Nottingham?
I think they'd argue, first of all, that they have very experienced rough sleeping services who are very good at finding people hidden away. But there are other factors. We know Nottingham has a particular housing crisis that's pushing rents through the roof. We know they find a lot of people from out of town sleeping rough in Nottingham. Part of that is inmates being released from the local prison. And then there's the closure of that local asylum hotel. That is having a big impact, so much so that one charity is now opening a temporary building to take 12 of those refugees off the streets.
Is there anything being done to actually help sort of entrench rough sleeping, if you can call it that?
Yeah, and that is a much more difficult challenge because, as you know, people have very complex addiction problems a lot of the time. Dealing with that is complex and it's expensive too. But the head of Nottingham's largest homelessness service told me he's convinced this can be done.
We didn't just get rid of rough sleeping in the pandemic, it's happened before. It happened in 2010 as a result of the Supporting People programme, which was very effective. The problem is that every time we learn how to do it, we unlearn those lessons again and do things differently, and then rough sleeping comes back.
Has there been any response from the government?
Yeah, I've had a statement, Anne, from the Housing and Communities Department to say a lot of money is being spent on their rough sleeping initiative. Now, that includes £36 million in the East Midlands over 3 years, and that's just one of several schemes they're funding. And tomorrow we're going to be hearing two very powerful examples of how that treatment really is turning lives round.